Bismillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Peace and blessings be upon every one of you. Welcome to another special episode of The Scholar and the Student. I'm back in Mahalape, but my guest is all the way in Malaysia, although he's also originally from Palapye as well. But ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, welcome to the season finale of The Scholar and the Student Season 1. I brought on today, all the way from Malaysia, my brother and my friend Hashmat, who is actually one of the minds behind The Scholar and the Student. He is, if you go on the Facebook page, you'll see that he's listed as a team member. I purposely didn't list myself as a team member because I like to be incognito like that. But in the season finale, we had quite a few things that we wanted to do. This is our second take. We were going to come on wearing our masks and everything, but the technology just wasn't cooperating with that. So I guess, that's just a way of signaling that coronavirus, God, I just said it out loud, that this pandemic is slowly, but I guess somewhat surely, dwindling down to an end, and we shouldn't try to push this beyond its limit. But anyway, Hashmat, welcome to the show. I know you wanted to be on before, but this is the first time we've actually managed to host you online, and I hope the audio is going to come out clear and everything. Welcome to The Scholar and the Student, the season finale of Season 1. How does that make you feel? Give us a bit of an intro about yourself and your input in this whole project.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, Moss. Thanks for having me. Awesome being here. We were supposed to do one when I was still in Botswana, but then timings and all of that, So, yeah, good to be here. As Moss said, my name's Hashmat. I'm from Palapye, Botswana, currently in Malaysia for university and all of that. Anyways, we'll be back home soon after this coronavirus. What are we calling it, Moss? This pandemic?
Yes, that.
Right, that. As soon as this pandemic ends.
So if you're wondering why Hashmat and I are a bit reluctant to say this, it's because although we are not monetized, in Botswana there is no monetization program for YouTube, but a lot of content creators, even if they're talking about something like video games or movies or anime and how their productions have been affected by this pandemic, they cannot say that word out loud, although we have said it out loud already twice or so. I hope that doesn't get us into trouble. Just by doing that, that gets them demonetized. So I know it's a weird rule, but YouTube always has funky rules like that. And we'll talk more about YouTube and Facebook and us uploading these videos here and all that. But coming to the point of us being content creators, I understand that we're not the biggest, but we do have a responsibility, even if we're small, that even when people look back on how we started, they can see that we started with integrity and that we were cognizant of what was happening in the world around us. As content creators and as Muslim content creators over and above that, we have certain responsibilities, even if they don't directly affect us right here and right now. And if you are not getting where I'm trying to take this conversation, in this last week that passed, we have seen a resurgence. It's not a new issue. It's been part of the fabric of American society for God knows how long. But we have seen a resurgence in police brutality against our black brothers and sisters. And that culminated with the death of George Floyd. We ask God to have mercy on his soul and everything good that we can ask for. But I don't know, Hashmat, this is a difficult topic to talk about and not something that I was initially planning to speak on because this was just supposed to be a review of everything we've done so far. But we have this responsibility to speak up on these issues and the like, even if, you might make an argument that it doesn't affect us in Botswana, but the reality is that it does. Racism affects every single one of us, and us being of South Asian descent, we also have something of a responsibility because we've seen many backward attitudes in our communities. We can speak from our communities because that's the community that we surrounded ourselves in growing up. We can't speak about, for example, the attitudes of Palestinians towards black people because I'm not Palestinian. And of course, my heart goes out to the people who are suffering in the Gaza Strip and all that. But I don't know about that community as much as I know about South Asians and people of South Asian descent in Botswana. So I don't know, Hashmat, to begin with, what's it like in Malaysia? What is their reaction?
I mean, this thing in Malaysia, it hasn't trickled down here yet. I mean, it isn't public news right now because maybe it's quite new for them, or they haven't prioritized it yet. Whatever the reason is, regardless of whatever they think about it, it is wrong. And slowly but surely, majority of the people, I hope, will stand against this abuse, this oppression, as we do. We stand against this kind of oppression. It is wrong. And yeah, I mean, it's just heartbreaking to think over and over again, these things keep happening, and for some reason, we aren't learning anything from it. Over time, like every couple of years, this kind of stuff happens, but nothing is done about it. That's the problem. And this time, I have a feeling it might be different. This kind of backlash against the police, against the government, hasn't happened in a long time. So, let's hope whatever is happening happens for the best. It's hectic.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it is hectic because this isn't, like I said, racism isn't something new. And in the United States of America, especially, we know the history that the United States of America has with, slavery, and obviously that trickling back into that whole narrative of colonialism and all those things. And what we're seeing today, as cheesy as it sounds, is actually a result of all these years of, oppression against people of color and what have you. And I understand that we're not doing it justice on this podcast. I think that, it's a shame that we have to take a bit of a break, but there are other things going on. So we have to basically, this is the final episode for this season, but I think next season we should definitely get some people who are specialized in this field to really talk about issues such as this, issues relating to race in the Muslim community. Because I don't know about you, bro, but myself, like I said, growing up in a family of South Asian descent. I mean, I do consider myself a Botswana fine, and I indulge, like yourself, I indulge myself more in Botswana culture than any other culture for that matter. But you have those certain family members, maybe you know what I'm talking about, who have those those mentalities, and they make those comments about black people, or basically they make those comments about people who are not from your area, from your side of the river, you know what I'm saying. But growing up, you were kind of taught that, just tolerate it, it's part of respect and everything. But now you come and you see this, and then you're like, no, we can't just be silent anymore. We need to take some solid action. So these are difficult conversations, but conversations that need to be had regardless. So I think I'm gonna, contact some ulama, some scholars of Islam. Already I contacted, for the last episode, we saw Sheikh Ismail Kamdar, and we talked about a lot of things, particularly about separating Indian culture from Islam, which is a mistake that many people unfortunately do, something that perhaps I myself fell into for a long time, but it's something that we need to grow out of. And in that same light, I hope that we can get some more scholars of Islam and even people who are not Muslim to talk about these things, so that we can maneuver ourselves and conduct ourselves as basically the pioneers of anti-racism, as the ambassadors of people who would stamp down on such barbarous acts being committed against anyone. And there's no argument to say that, oh, because I'm not black, it's not going to happen to me. Today it's black people. I mean, yesterday it was Muslims. Who else is it going to be next? This thing doesn't discriminate. Unless you're going to fight this machine, it's going to trample you down as well. So I know we're not doing it justice, but I hope that we have done something, and we're not discharging our responsibility fully, obviously, but I hope that these words would be of some use. Anyway, I don't know if you have any parting words on this, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually really hard to talk about it at the moment. It is fresh, so it isn't exactly easy to talk about. But saying that, it isn't new either. Even like in 2014, 2015, we saw what happened with Eric Garner and all of that. Same thing, literally the same thing keeps happening again and again and again. Same thing, different people, same thing, same races. Eric Garner, 2015, 2014, whenever it was, that man got choked to death, right in front of a shop. So, as you said, it's just a continuation of what's been happening since about 400 years It's been 400 years of oppression, man. And over time, this oppression nothing's been really done about it, and it's actually created branches and subsections of this kind of oppression, this passive aggression and superiority and all of this kind of stuff. I think the essence is that until we don't do anything about the superiority complex, oppression isn't going anywhere, as it's really hard to talk about it at the moment, but it's hectic, man. As long as superiority complexes exist, as you said, in our South Asian countries as well, as long as that stuff exists, oppression and hatred will not leave us. So next season, let's hope we can get some people on here who have the knowledge. We regardless of what our reach is or what our power is, what our stance is, we have the responsibility to at least talk about it, give our awareness. Whatever power, whatever potential we have, we'll use it to spread our awareness through our channels, that? So, we'll talk about this in the following seasons with people who are well informed in this topic, and then we'll take it on from there.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail right on the head over there. And we know my famous disclaimer. How about I always say that, I'm radioactive. My superpower is making people have heart attacks and they are free to die. I think that's going to have more of a bite next season and the seasons coming on from now, because so far that's been kind of a joke, because it's been about things that are somewhat trivial. For example, Muslims who have an issue with me reviewing fictional books that have magic in them, okay? And although no one has openly said anything on that line, I know that those people exist. You know that those people exist. It's not a stretch of the imagination to know that these people exist, and I basically dismissed them with that one statement. I think the next season we're going to take that statement on from a different angle, which is this angle of we're going to talk about these things that people don't want to talk about, that people don't want to talk about in the Friday khutbahs, as sacred as that is, because they don't want to lose their jobs. Or bro, I don't know if you've seen that message I posted on WhatsApp today. Actually, I think that part was blurred out, but apparently some scholars of Islam don't want to talk about this in Botswana, although it's so prevalent and it's something that we need to talk about, but they won't talk about it on the pulpit on Friday, because they are at a risk of losing their jobs. So, I understand that this is a difficult conversation, but one that we need to have, and one that we will, inshallah, Lord willing, be having on the scholar and the student as the seasons progress. And it's okay. Coming back to our episodes, I think it's somewhat amazing in the fact that if you go back and listen to episode 1, the pilot, and I said that I would like the episodes to be structured in a certain way, or I'd like to do these things this season, I ended up doing pretty much all of them, by the grace of Allah, by the grace of God. But coming back to our episodes, Hashmat, what do you think about this season in general, without actually diving into the episode specifically? What do you think? What's the vibe you get?
Diverse, Initially, when you came up with this thing that, we're going to start the first ever Muslim podcast. Yes, it is. The first ever established Muslim podcast. Let's keep it that name. But yeah, it isn't just that. It's way beyond that, It's, as you said, that you did the whole Harry Potter thing and all of the fictional books and all of that. For a person traditionally who is Muslim and from our descent, our area, whatever you are doing right now is haram. Simple as that. As soon as you speak about Harry Potter, you are a So it's good that we're fighting against that. Breaking the status quo a little bit, just bending a little bit. So that's a good thing. Diversity is how I would sum up this season, if I would have in a word.
I think you nailed it on the head. And one of my intentions with the whole podcast was to show that we do, as Muslims, we do more than just fasting in Ramadan or praying 5 times a day. We're not saying that's not part of our religion. It's definitely a big part of our religion. But there's nothing wrong with a Muslim who enjoys Harry Potter. I mean, go back and listen to that episode for God's sake. I mean, brother Salahuddin and I went into such depth about it, and there are so many good things that we can take from Harry Potter. And Sheikh Ismail Kamdar, I don't know if you remember from that episode, he said that while he was doing his alim course, he read all the Harry Potter books as they were coming out. I mean, how many ulama, how many scholars can have that as an achievement over there? But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So yeah, diverse is the right word. I also want to break stereotypes. I have been getting, though, some what do you call, some snippets of constructive feedback from some brothers who have called me up and said, look, we appreciate what you're doing, but why don't you also talk about other aspects that are more traditional? For example, what happens to the soul after death and so on and so forth. And I've got something to say about that, but what's your take, Hashmat, on those kind of topics?
Dear brothers, whoever saying these things, why don't you say something about that? We all have equal access to the internet these days. You have the phone maybe even better than ours. This is the second time we're recording this podcast because of technical difficulties. I'm sure you won't be facing those issues. Please do that yourself. Right? With respect.
Wow, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, okay, that's your way of approaching it. I was going to say that, look, all of that is in its place. And second of all, you see, those kind of topics, they need someone with that specialist knowledge to actually talk about them. Now, I have read up a lot on Islamic topics and all those kind of things, but I'm not a scholar by any chance. I am not the scholar when it, we have the scholar and the student in the title of this podcast. Usually I'm not the scholar, and if I am, it's not coming from an Islamic lens, because Islamically scholar means something different. So I don't want to say something that's absolutely wrong and give people a skewed image about something that they're supposed to believe in when they become Muslim or whatever the case may be. So there is a need for like special knowledge in that area, but also like I said earlier, I want to show that Muslims are doing more than just praying 5 times a day or just fasting in Ramadan, that we can also have a laugh, that we also interact with people who are not from the same religion as us. I've interviewed Kahawa Entertainment, I've interviewed Odirile, and obviously more interviews to come in the future. And I'm not going to discriminate on the basis of someone's religion about what we're going to talk about. And obviously, everyone would have said something that I don't agree with personally from a religious standpoint or whatever the standpoint may be. But why do we need to restrict ourselves when we're looking for wisdom? Wisdom is the lost property of the believer. That's the hadith, the saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So if we're just going to skew our discussions, we're just going to have this echo chamber, this bubble, we're not going to be able to unearth wisdom the way it's supposed to be unearthed. That's also one of the rationales I had when actually starting this podcast. So yes, I think diversity is the word that hit the nail on the head, and definitely we'll be seeing how we can even expand as time goes on. I mean, I'm always debating with myself whether I should start doing movie reviews as well on the scholar and the student. But I mean, there is that attitude amongst our people that movies are haram. And okay, if you're coming from an Islamic perspective, I will respect you whether I follow you or not. But, for example, Howl's Moving Castle has got a good movie adaptation from what I hear, and it's on Netflix now, so I might go and check it out. So I'm really debating on whether I should actually take things like that on. And also, things like Ertugrul, which we spoke about it briefly in the Harry Potter episode, but what about having an actual round table discussion going into each episode and each season individually and talking about what it means to us as Muslims, why it's a breath of fresh air, and why we might not like it as Muslims at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is, Sadly, I have a feeling that a lot of this backlash that we get these days usually doesn't come from the outside, but it's from within, We ourselves have, in a way, hit our own feet with an axe. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but we have restricted what Islam is to just prayers and the 5 pillars of Islam. That's it, And we don't carry the we don't accept other people's opinions. I don't know why that is, but once we do open up to accepting other opinions, or at least understanding them, wanting to know what the other side is, maybe then we can start, going out for like open topics. But yeah, the first thing we need to do is sort ourselves out. Give ourselves some understanding.
I understand what you're saying, bro, but at the same time, I wonder, is this not, a result of like the Muslim community in Botswana still being somewhat entrenched in the past? Because the Mad Mamluks the Mad Mamluks is one of the prominent, if not the, literally people call them the Joe Rogan of Muslim podcasts, all right? That's how big the Mad Mamluks are. And although I don't necessarily agree with everything that they say, they have done an episode on Ertugrul. They frequently say on their podcast, like if they're recording like how we are today, they'll say, oh, tomorrow I'm going to see Avengers Endgame or something like that. And no one will bat an eyelid. In fact, one of their hosts is a scholar of Islam. And one episode he was talking about, last night we watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and my son really liked it and all that kind of stuff. In the United States of America, I know we started speaking about them in somewhat of a negative light. And okay, that's in its place. But at the same time, when it comes to, for example, these things, no one ever on the comment section blew out on them saying that, why the hell are you guys watching movies, it's haram, and all those kinds of things. They've even reviewed shows like, have you heard of Rami, that show on Hulu?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, maybe that's for the better. But anyway, they didn't put such a good review about it because it's about this Muslim guy named Rami, and then, he does weird stuff in Ramadan, like, dude, the guy gets laid or something. Anyway, like in Ramadan after Taraweeh with some random girl. So they were like fuming out about that. But the point is that these people openly said that they watched it and then they didn't like it. But if we came in Botswana and we did the same thing, tomorrow at the masjid, our names will be mentioned and we will be cast out from the society. Not that I care about those things, but I'm just saying it's a bit unfair that so many people have to deal with this rubbish. And not even going that far, how much rubbish did I have to deal with just because I said I want to be a lawyer? And to the South Asian Muslim mindset, that's haram. Like, where on earth did he get that? Just, dude, stop watching The Godfather. It's a good movie, but it's not a mirror into the reality of what lawyers do in their everyday life or whatever it is. But yeah, a bit of a tangent over there. What's your take on this? Do you think it's just because we in Botswana, the Muslim community, we've got a lot of work to do? And one of the other rationales for this podcast was to push the Muslim community in that direction, to see how we can open up.
In that episode with Sheikh Ismail Kamdar, he said it the best, we need to change a few things, and I completely agree with him. That episode is exactly the answer to your question. What you're doing here with this podcast is exactly what needs to happen. Change is what needs to happen. We need to change things. Open up to accepting other viewpoints of what we call entertainment. And that maybe will help us understand our positions and our religion better. This can be a source of gathering information regarding your religion in a much more easier and more digestible way than traditional methods.
Absolutely. And we're not telling anyone to like cut off the scholars from their life or whatever. Definitely keep that link up with them and, learn from them. We're not saying that this is, a replacement for whatever learning you're doing on your own. It's not going to teach you Arabic. It's not going to teach you how to learn to read the Quran and those kinds of things. Those classes have their purpose, but this is an alternative. We can't just be coming down from a book all the time. And I think I said it in my House Moving Castle review that, it's not all about this is halal, this is haram, blah, 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 blah. There is so much that goes into our faith, our everyday life, besides just halal and haram, besides just permissible and impermissible. But then again, alhamdulillah, you were mentioning the episode with Sheikh Ismail Kamdar, and I think it's one of my most viewed episodes on Facebook anyway. But is that to say that you've kept up and you've watched practically every single episode until now? I know you're kind of part of the team, so you kind of have to do that. But from your personal standpoint as a viewer, what do you think about every Am I correct in assuming that you've watched every single episode to start with? And what do you think about the quality about each of them?
I mean, except for the two book reviews, I never went through them completely. But other than that, yeah, I went through each and every one of the episodes. And yeah, over time, as we progress, quality will get better too as well. You know, you learn as you go. But till now, it's all going smooth. It's all perfect. It's solid. Perfect. This is, you know, as they say, generations change and you got to adapt to the new generation. So this may be a step towards that direction. And yeah.
Absolutely. But is there any episode that strikes out to you, first of all, that strikes out to you as like amazing, like next level kind of thing? Like you weren't expecting this from someone as small as us. And at the same time, is there an episode that sticks out to you like, this is bad, like you should have just left it in the cutting board and gone with something else? Are there any episodes that stick out like that?
Look, the first episode with Maulana Jawad was amazing. Because never in my mind would I imagine you and Maulana Jawad on an episode of a podcast in Botswana, right? So that was like a groundbreaking thing, you know? It was amazing. Quality was solid. Everything was perfect. Yeah, then as each episode progressed, so did the storyline of everything. And you see, the thing is that everything was flowing. And that's the best thing about it. Flowing in the sense that you'd never get bored with any topic. There's something for everybody. You know, it's not just restricted to just one topic or one aspect or one genre. It's diverse. I mean, which other podcast would invite TZ and TK Kahawa with their blue suits and their sunglasses on? TZ, you're watching this video. But
yeah, just so you guys know, they came all dressed up to my house while I felt underdressed. I just woke up and tied my hair. That's all I did. These guys came with suits. But anyway, you were saying, Hashmat.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, where else would you find that? It's different, man. It's different, and each episode gets better and better. You know. And that's saying that season 2 is going to be amazing.
Absolutely, because I think with season 2, we're also going to, step up the quality, when it comes to production and all those things. I was experimenting with OBS, but because of, you saw how technical difficulties can mess up an episode. So I think once OBS, if it gets running properly, then obviously we can take the production to the next level. But if you say every episode was getting better, is that your way of saying that your favorite one so far was the one with Sheikh Ismail Kamdar, which is the episode just before this one?
It was one of my favorite ones because of how he was explaining things. You'd never really think about things the way he was explaining things. And I really hope that the older generation listens to that episode. And we'll share it as much as we can and through each and every medium we can, because everybody needs to listen to his viewpoints, because he's looking at things in a different, from a different lens, from a different angle. And that's what we need to do. Look at things from different angles. And it's better if we all understand that.
Absolutely. And the guy's not making stuff up. He is a scholar of Islam. He knows what he's talking about. And he didn't pull this out of his butt. He got this from whatever knowledge he was learning. And obviously his whole story is up there on that episode, how he was once upon a time he was a jihadi as well, became a Salafi until he got to where he is right now. So he's seen a lot of different people with a lot of different viewpoints. So yes, we definitely should be sharing that. What do you think about the length of the episodes though? Because I don't have a set length when I go into recording any one of these. I don't know how this episode that we're recording is going to be anyway. Because if you look, we started off the first episode. I've got the schematics in front of me. The first episode was half an hour, 30 minutes and 3 seconds. And after that, I think the longest I'm seeing is the one with, let me see. No, it's the book review where it was 1 hour, 1.5 hours basically. So anything between these two lengths. And TZ did once say that some people were complaining about the length, but podcasts are supposed to be long at the same time. And of course, we did post one short clip as well. But what's your take on the length?
it doesn't really matter, as long as it takes for a point to come across, it's all right. Regardless of time, you gotta let your point through. Now, you can't set a limit of time on something like that. Yes, you can put like a bar, like we're not going over 2 hours. That's the thing for like the scholar and the student. We're not going over 2 hours. Below that, anything and everything is acceptable, depending on what the topic is. If a topic is small, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, it's all right. Extensive topics like your fictional book reviews take time, and those did take over an hour. Now the thing is that we're living in this era of social media, so everybody wants pull content, rather than push content. If you're going to go drop 2-hour clips one time, that's like pushing your content to someone. Rather, we'll just cut them into like 5-minute bits, 3-minute bits, 2-minute bits. And then if someone's interested, they can watch a bit or 2, 3 bits, and then they'll go on to the full episode and then watch it. Depends on how we supply it,
Excellent. So it's basically you're saying there's an importance of having both the full episodes in your huge packaged form, whether it's 1 hour or whatever. At the same time, you also have short clips of 2 minutes or however long they may be.
Yeah.
So people of both temperaments can have something to enjoy.
I mean, like you see how you put down the timestamps of each and every topic, right? Now, whatever topic you think might resonate with people, we just cut that clip out and then post that out. If somebody finds that interesting, he'll look into the timestamps and then he can watch the whole video as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head once again over there. But coming back to our viewership, most of our views from the schematics I have in front of me, I wish I could share my screen, but it's going to be kind of weird. Most of our views are coming from Facebook. So let me just have a quick... The most viewed episode as of this recording, and I don't think it's a surprise, is the one I did with Botizi and TK with 386 views.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was about 5 weeks ago. Yes. The second most watched, actually it's tied. It's Learning Through the Ages with Mr. Kleinans, and then the one I did about a week ago with Sheikh Ismail Kamda. Those are both tied at 156 views. But Sheikh Ismail's one, funny story, it wasn't supposed to go up on Eid day, but I didn't know it was going to be Eid, number one. Number two, I was away from my laptop because, get this, the video's file size was about 500 megabytes. That uploaded to YouTube in 45 minutes when I was still in Gabs.
Okay.
I didn't want to stay long because I had to drive back to Palapye as well. So I brought the thing with me to Palapye. I tried live streaming it, didn't work. I tried uploading it, that same file which uploaded to YouTube in 45 minutes, I left my laptop on for about 2 or 3 nights and it only uploaded after that. So Facebook, I've said this before, has a really crappy uploader.
It's a headache.
People were saying when Facebook Watch came out,
it's a headache.
Facebook Watch was going to be the one that killed YouTube and all this thing. Look, it's not going to happen unless they fix the uploader. So, Mark Zuckerberg, if you're watching this, fix your damn uploader, bro. Because, that's one thing that frustrates me, that we have most of our viewers coming from Facebook itself, but Facebook is just such a pain to work with. I honestly don't know what to do about that.
I mean, there isn't really much you can do about that uploader. It's not in our hands, But yeah, as far as viewership goes, whatever views we're getting, it's perfect. Organic reaches are better. You know what? Yeah, advertisement. You could advertise with Facebook and all that, and then push your content to more people, and that would increase your reach, and then that would give access to other people who are looking for this kind of content. Regardless of whether it's in Botswana, it's in South Africa, it's in anywhere in Africa, wherever it is, it would reach to those people who maybe were looking for this kind of content but never had the access to it. So advertisements on Facebook would help with that.
All right. Now I get what you're saying, but an interesting anomaly is, okay, this might be due to the fact that he's from the UK. The episode I did with Brother Salahuddin, Harry Potter and Islam, is actually the second most viewed on YouTube. It's got about, I think, 82 views or something on there. The most viewed is the first episode with 90 views or something like that. So, you see, elsewhere, and okay, if you have Wi-Fi, let's put it like this. If you have Wi-Fi, YouTube is your go-to for videos and even podcasts to an extent. We don't have Spotify here, but I use YouTube for my podcast as well. It works just as well, yeah, for the most part. So the rest of the world is kind of skewed towards YouTube, whereas in Botswana, because of mobile data and all those packages and all that, that's why most of our viewership is coming from Facebook, because most people have access to Facebook before they have access to YouTube. So that's skewed in that way. But the thing is, I like to look at my audience as being from all over the world instead of just restricting it to Botswana itself. But at the same time, the data is not reflecting that. So how would you say we can best push our content to places beyond Botswana? Obviously, Botswana is going to see what we're doing first. We are Botswana's first Muslim podcast. But how can we push it on to other places and, beyond, go beyond, plus ultra?
I mean, it takes time. It's not going to be an overnight thing. And I'm no expert about this, but as far as I know, it won't take. It just depends on how you provide your thing. As I said, those little bits, it's like gold, bro, right? Those are things that are accessible to each and every person. Nobody's going to sit around for 2 hours just to listen to a podcast they don't even know about. So those are the way you can increase your viewership.
Yeah, I mean, on the topic of how people listen to podcasts, I don't know about you, but myself, usually I put a podcast on, like I've got my headphones on, and then I go and do something else for, I don't know, whether I'm playing a video game or I'm driving or I'm, on the treadmill. And I have put a post that's pinned on the Facebook page about how to listen to podcasts efficiently. You don't have to sit in front of a screen for 2 hours. I mean, who does that? I mean, maybe I could do that if I tried, but I'm not sure I recommend that. Anyway, coming back to the book reviews. So you didn't notice a dip in quality with the book reviews. I've only done 3, obviously. It's the same series. And Harry Potter is a series on its own, but those weren't actually book reviews. But anyway, you're saying that the quality more or less stayed consistent.
Yeah, I mean, the book reviews, the quality was solid. It was consistent. The only one which wasn't very good in audio, regarding to audio, was the one with Salahuddin. I think that was a technical thing. But other than that, the book reviews and all of that, the quality was solid. A1.
Yeah, so the reason why I was asking that is that, you see, the first book review, I didn't have a blueprint of what I was supposed to do. But the second ones, I just finished listening to the book, and then I went and I did my review. I made my notes and everything. And I think what I did, especially with that, House of Many Ways book review, is that I almost in many ways tried to reproduce the story beat for beat. Whereas if you look at Howl's Moving Castle, I summarized it more. And I guess I wasn't consciously trying to summarize the story beat for beat, as in I didn't set out to do that. I didn't wake up and say, let's summarize the story word for word like this. But I think that was just a side effect of me having listened to the book recently and it being fresh in my mind and not wanting to leave a detail. I don't know if that's something that you picked up on as well. Do you think I could reduce on the details? Because honestly speaking, that is what took most of the time in the House of Many Ways book review. The actual themes, I believe, the themes and the structure and the plot devices didn't take as much time as, the actual summary of the story. So
I mean, it depends. Like, you see, some people, majority of the people who want to listen to reviews, I've listened to a few reviews, and the people that are giving the reviews are very thorough with their information, with their research. It gives them a complete gist of what the book is about, what the entire series is about. So as much information as can be gathered is more beneficial, the same way you did when you gathered all the information for that review. Information is what's important.
Okay, that's somewhat reassuring to hear. I guess it depends on the book as well. I think next season we're also going to try doing non-fiction books, self-help books, and we'll see how best to do them, because I don't know about you, but I feel recording alone is it's more taxing on me than actually recording with someone else. As in, I feel that I'm more articulate when I'm speaking to someone than me sitting here and trying to do this on my own, because I always say that this is not good enough, then I rewind and I re-record, and that tinge of perfectionism, even though I've eradicated perfectionism from my life mostly, but you always have that critical eye for your own content and you want to push it even beyond.
Yeah.
But now, let's talk about a very, very juicy topic that may or may not piss off some viewers or it may alienate them. Monetization. We have spoken about this personally before. And so basically, monetization of the podcast, how podcasts get monetized, from what I understand, is that, let's say our release date so far has been Friday. So if the podcast was monetized, we'd say only those who have, paid like $3 a month, whatever the cost may be. I'm not saying we're going to do this. They will get access to the podcast on Friday. Everyone else who is a free member, they get access to the podcast on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, whatever. So there's that delayed response. You know what I'm saying? So what's your take on us monetizing the scholar and the student? Because, man, the guy's got to eat, and COVID wasn't a good time for, all that. It wasn't a good time for us in the job market, basically.
You're putting your time in, you're putting your effort in, you're putting for people, So I don't see any reason why monetization is a problem. It should be monetized. You're taking your time out, you're putting effort into this thing here, and the people who really want to listen to this kind of stuff will pay. And these videos should be monetized. Definitely.
Absolutely, but we are kind of at a disadvantage here in Botswana because we can't monetize YouTube videos, which I believe I've already mentioned. But we do have access to platforms such as Coffee, which is spelled KO-FI. And why I'm mentioning Coffee and not Patreon, even though Patreon is the more popular one, is because Coffee doesn't actually take a cut of anything that you're going to earn. And I believe Patreon is also doing the same, but that's only for as long as this pandemic is amongst us. Once that's gone, we go back to normal with Patreon taking a certain amount of your cut and what have you. But I talked about this monetization business with someone else before who was also familiar with the podcast as well. So, we talked about how in the States, for example, many people quit their full-time jobs to become full-time YouTubers. I know a guy, Fox and Anime. He's from the States, I'm not sure which part. But now he has moved to Japan, and as far as I understand, he's doing YouTube full-time, talking about anime, mostly Attack on Titan and Sword Art, online alicization and all those kinds of things. So this guy is basically sitting behind a screen and doing what he loves, and he's sustaining himself. The guy moved from the US to Japan, for God's sake. It's not easy to just pack your things up and move to a different country altogether just to make videos on something you love, like anime. So obviously, I'm not saying that that's going to happen to us next season or the season after that. This kind of stuff takes time. You need to build up your following and show that you can deliver on what you're promising. But he was basically coming from that angle that, in Botswana, it's not like the States where everyone has internet access, Wi-Fi access, that they can just go on YouTube and you're getting, thousands of views every single day. It's a different landscape over here. So we might not be making fortunes, but I don't see why we cannot monetize, at all, if that's going to be the case.
Look, regarding all of this YouTube and all of this kind of stuff, passion and balance. That TZ episode, that Kahawa episode, right? Simple as that. Mm-hmm. Once you are passionate about something, you've got to find your balance, right? And to keep yourself afloat, you've got to monetize. And yes, avenues such as Coffee and all of that. Now, I'm not saying, as Moss said, that you're not going to go and monetize as soon as possible. Obviously, over time, once you see things, growing, you see your growth, then obviously you can monetize and all of that. But if you've got a passion, passion doesn't pay the bills, right? To put it bluntly. So we've got to monetize.
All right, excellent. I hope that's not alienating the viewers. Okay, what would you say, coming from the point as a viewer, because you've been a viewer, I think, for longer than you've been part of the team. As a viewer, would this alienate you somewhat?
I've got a different type of relationship with this. I enjoy it. I enjoy watching the podcast. So not for me personally, not. But people who aren't regulars, then maybe. But I don't think so, man. This thing, it's diverse, it's different, it's new, people love it, and I don't have a reason. I don't see why it would push people away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, I don't advocate just throwing your money out at anything that interests you. Like, obviously, find out who these people are, do whatever background checks you want to do. Of course, that's a bit reduced when it comes to content creators. I mean, with content creators, if you like the stuff that they're putting out and you want them to put out more, then of course, by all means, support them. I always encourage people to go out and buy the books that I review, for example. And, you know, we talked about Harry Potter, so go and buy those books. And if you want to watch those films, if it's not on Netflix, then go and buy the DVDs, all right? I know it's a hard life out there, but we have to support the people who are actually producing the content as well. So, yeah, we've talked about quite a lot, to be honest. Are there any glaring issues or anything else that you think we need to give attention to in regards to this season?
No, that's about it, man. Let's just hope season 2 is even better than season 1, and so on and so forth. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, this was more. I intended it to be more of a chill session of you and me just analyzing our weaknesses and seeing how we can improve over time and all that. But basically, the one comment that I picked up from you that was like the biggest weakness was the episode with brother. Well, I don't want to put him on the spot, but basically it was the episode about Harry Potter and Islam, and I've already told you that it was a nightmare to clean up that audio. But okay, just tell me everything about that. Was it at least listenable? Could you understand what we were saying?
Okay, you know, I first listened to it on this phone, and it wasn't really clear because the audio wasn't loud enough. Then I switched to the other phone. Surprisingly, it was crisp. Well, not crisp, but it was listenable. You know, it was clear. So I think it depends on the devices as well, and we'll have to look into that as well. What audio ranges work best, and all of that. You had an audio sound engineer, Ishaq. Was it Ishaq? Yeah, you had Ishaq over there. Ishaq, we can get information from him as well regarding how these kind of things work. What I'm trying to say is that the audio doesn't respond equally throughout all the devices. So we'll have to look into that as well.
I mean, yeah, it's very technical. I don't understand why any phone would do that for that matter. But I mean, it took almost a month for me to clean up my side of the audio because there was very bad static at the back when we started recording that thing. So, season finale of The Scholar and the Student, season 1. Myself in Palapye. Temporarily, I should be going back to the big city sometime tomorrow, if Allah wills. Otherwise, sometime this week. The lockdown has been lifted, but we still need permits to go across zones. But no one actually checks them, so I don't know. I don't feel like taking chances, though. Anyway, so Hashmat, thank you very much for everything, for coming on today, and even before that, thank you for pushing to get this podcast out. Thank you for helping with that one upload that was very, very strenuous. By the way, I hope the fact that my upload schedule on Facebook isn't as consistent hasn't pushed anyone away, because I always put up those apology posts that it's on YouTube, but Facebook is being difficult. So, and we've explained why that is. So Mark Zuckerberg, everyone go message Mark Zuckerberg or whoever the technical team is for Facebook to go and fix their damn uploader. So, yeah, I hope that's not pushing viewers away. What do you think, though? Because most of our viewership is on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you can't really do anything about that. You put in the links for YouTube, and that's all right. It's okay. It'll come when it comes. But yeah, we're here for it. Whenever.
All right, excellent. So, yes, dear audience, dear viewers, we hope you enjoyed listening to this. We started off on a not so positive note, but we had to talk about that because we, as content creators, however small we may be, we have the responsibility to speak about such issues. We hope that you enjoyed listening to us analyze our own weaknesses, and we'd like to hear your comments as well. So put them below on YouTube, on Facebook, message us. We've got the email address up. Follow us on all our socials and let us know how we can improve. And also, after this episode is up and running, I will also be expanding the social media outlets. So I'm planning to get on Twitter, because Twitter is the place for podcasters, apparently. yeah, Twitter. I should be more active on Instagram, and I'll also see how I can get my podcast on more platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Anchor was supposed to do that for me, but I honestly don't know why they didn't. But hey, it's all good. Hashmat, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have any final words to say to the viewers?
Listen, yeah, guys. Don't take things too seriously. You know, this thing that we call life is something that is ever changing. We're going through this tough time these days. There's so many things that are going wrong in the world. Actually, majority of the things that are going around in this world is negative. But just stay reassured that this isn't permanent. Nothing is not good, not bad. So it's a rough patch. We'll get out of it soon. All right.
Excellent. And on that very optimistic note, we will take our leave for the last time in a long time. The scholar and the student is taking a bit of a break because I've got exams coming up and there's some other projects I also want to focus on. We'll let you know about what those are. But until we meet again for season 2, this is myself, Moss, from Palapye for the scholar and the student with my brother Hashmat. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings, peace and love unto everyone. Peace out. Have a great day.
All right, boss.